Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds. Hang out with this nerd.
Ted?
Nerdarchy asks a question. Is it fair to hand your players a blank character sheet and then start playing the game?
Jump down in the description below where you can sign up for Nerdarchy, the newsletter, get weekly gaming tips, as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy.
So, we have another GM 911 for you guys, which you can find in the original post down in the description below. And if you have a GM 911 of your own, send it to nerdarchy@gmail.com, GM 911 in the subject line. We also take viewer suggestions over there as well. So, Ryan Camp sent us the GM 911, and basically, he has a concept for a campaign. And the concept is he wants the characters to start off with blank character sheets. They wake up, no memory, they don't know who they are. They just know they have a problem to solve and they only have 3 days to solve it or the world's going to end. So first step to playing a game like this is make sure your players want to.
I actually ran a game very similar to this type style, and it was an exploratory situation. We had to figure out, what our stats were, what our classes were, what our, favored weapon. I, at one point in time, punched a goblin, grappled him, and used as a weapon on the other goblin that was there. And I'm like, is this natural? Is this something that I'm used to? It's like, well, it's natural, but it's, not your favored fighting style. I'm like, okay, all right, this is great.
Who knew? Goblin chucks were not what I normally use.
It was a very weird campaign. We wound up never finishing it, which was a little sad. But it was great that not only were we exploring the world, were we exploring, the adventure, but we were figuring out who and what we were as characters. So I thought that was pretty badass.
So some people will think that is not badass, though. So it is definitely a campaign that you need to talk to your players with, and be like, I want to do this thing. Are you guys okay with it? And it works even better if you actually know your players, so you can kind of design characters that they like playing. So you're not doing the opposite, and they're not having fun.
Right now. This was being run by someone who was a close friend of ours. They knew the type of characters that we enjoyed playing. This was back in the time when I really enjoyed playing meat wall fightery type characters that like to squash things with heavy weapons. Nate's always been fond of spellcasters. Our buddy Matt, who's was on the cruise with us, he enjoys rogue type characters. So each one of us were in those positions. Just what manner of them were we? How was it twisted? What kind of races were we? All of that had to be figured out so that you could do the same thing if you know your players. As Dave says, run a session 0. Talk to them and see whether your players are into this. But once you've got buy-in, then the great part starts. You write your game and you leak in clues and different things about the characters that they have to then figure out. When they come upon whether it be a mirror or some kind of object that they should be familiar with, it might spring forth a memory. And don't give them just a memory. Give them a memory and have that affected by something on their character sheet, whether it be a stat or a skill or a class ability. Have it all get explored so that when you see those things, it's attached to a memory, which is when you did this. And now you've unlocked something on your character sheet that you know without a doubt, so you don't have to always ask the question, does this hit or does this not?
So, yeah, you definitely want to do that. And I would definitely go with it from, not that they don't know anything, they just don't know anything about themselves.
Right.
They might know facts and details about the world. I would want them to know what common objects were, so it's not that annoying. You could do little things too, maybe there's calluses on one player's hands because they're used to wielding weapons with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there could be little things like that. Oh, you have a scar, a knife scar under your right eye, and you're like, oh, and it's a knife scar,
right?
Not that that you got a knife scar, but by looking at it, so it gives off another detail that your character's familiar with. Mm-hmm. Maybe you're at some point you come across a spell component pouch, and one of the characters can identify it and actually knows what all the stuff's in it. Mm-hmm. And that might be oh, well, maybe I cast spells because I know what this stuff is. So I wouldn't make it super. You don't want it to be a pain in the ass, right? You want them to be able to unravel clues and find things, and they walk by a mirror and they go like, that's an elf, and not you have to figure out what an elf is so that you can know that you're an elf. That would be a pain in the ass.
Yes, that's absolutely what you need to do. You've forgotten who you are, but your general knowledge is still there, and having those things really does expedite the situation. It says in there that you've got the premise of wanting to get out in 3 days or the world's going to end. So that leads me to believe that this is a one-shot as opposed to a protracted campaign, which is what we wound up having.
Well, maybe. I mean, it just might be how he's starting his campaign.
That's true.
And maybe he's running a 24-hour style game or a Dresden style book where 3 days is just going to happen. You're just going to roll right through. There will be no breaks.
That is entirely possible as well. But by having this be a shortened campaign arc, you don't want to run this kind of thing, every week for a year. It's going to get a little tedious if after a year, they still don't have a complete character sheet.
Yeah, that's the other thing. You know what? In your session 0, hey, give me the bucket list of hell no, I don't want to play anything like this or do that, or the things that they don't want to see on their character sheet. Kind of have that bucket list, and then hammer out the details of how long is this going to take in order to get where you want to be.
How long is the campaign? How long till I have a completed character sheet that I have jurisdiction over, as opposed to waiting for the DM to fill in details for me?
I think the group should decide on a number: 4 to 6 sessions, 6 to 8 sessions, 3 to 4 whatever. Now I wouldn't make it by session 4, but I would make it a short window range, so that 5 or 6 where they find out at 7 or they find out at 5, whatever. But it gives you something to work with. It gives them something to work towards, and they're not going to be dealing with that forever unless they really want that kind of game.
Indeed, and only you are going to know your players, and only you are going to have the ability to sit down and have these conversations. But I honestly think that if you have the people buy into this type of thing, it can be a lot of fun. I will tell you, it's a lot of work on the GM to manage this type of thing, because you're going to need to have, apart from everything else prepared, you're going to need to have a copy of all their character sheets. And when they say, okay, well, do I know X? All right, well, they're going to make a roll, then you're going to need to reference their sheet to know whether that roll was successful or not, because they're not managing their numbers. Therefore, that means as the DM, you have more work to do than a normal game. So this type of thing is not for every DM.
And the other thing, too, is how are you going to handle things like attacks, right? So you're the DM, you're managing the bonus. They roll a 12. And same monster, they roll 12 hits. Next round, they roll 11 doesn't hit. So they kind of know the number now, and that they need it to hit, and they know their bonus. So do you then say, hey, write that bonus down? I mean, I think you should, just to make it easier. And so when I'm using Goblin Chucks, I know that I get a +5, because that worked.
And I think that's exactly how we managed it. That as soon as we got into melee combat or ranged combat, we were able to figure out, okay, well, if I rolled this on the die and I have a gauge of that's what the armor class is, all right, well, that just gave me the number. And as we kind of narrowed things down, we got to figure out anytime those numbers meant something, we got clues on the character.
And the trickier part is going to be figuring out special abilities, how they manifest, and using them in the game. I think it would be lame if you did, well, you just have to try things.
That is incredibly frustrating from the player's perspective, and annoying for the DM to deal with. It's all right, well, what are you trying?
For instance, if you're a druid and you're high enough level and you have wild shape, if they're thinking, I want to be up on that ledge, I would have, as a DM, wild shape them into something to get to the ledge, whether it's a monkey that can climb or a bird that can fly. Depending on what's available to them. And then that unlocks something for them, and they know that, and they're like, oh, I'm some kind of shapeshifter. Or maybe they know about druids and oh, I'm a druid. That's right, I really do want to be outside, or whatever, So you'd have, the trick is to figure out clues like that. Maybe, if there's a cantrip on the character sheet that only has verbal and somatic components to it, you could have the wizard accidentally do it.
Right.
Or like a spell like shield, like they do it it happens as a reaction anyway. So in reaction to them being attacked and kind of being startled, they might throw up their shield.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be the trickiest thing, is to think about how to implement their abilities into the game that is fun and interesting for everybody.
And some things can be set up ahead of time. Prepare that you're going to literally have a handful of gimmies, so that if you're doing this over multiple sessions, every session they're walking away with multiple pieces of things. Some that are just you've prepared that you're putting in there, other things that they can and will explore and find out based on what they do.
Yeah, you want to have cool aha moments, like like when the rogue that doesn't know he's a rogue stops the fighter that doesn't know he's a fighter and keeps him from walking because there's a tripwire, and then it explains the tripwire and the whole trap mechanism and the crossbow bolt that was going to fire, out of the hole in the wall where the crossbow is housed, and he's like, "Oh crap! How do I know that?"
Exactly.
So these instinctual things just pop out in the game. I don't know. You guys have some suggestions for us down in the comments below. While you're down there, why don't you like, share, and subscribe?
You can tweet at us at Nerdarchy.
So until next time,
Stay nerdy.
They just know they have a problem to solve, and they only have 3 days to solve it, or the world's going to end. So first step to playing a game like this is make sure your players want to.
I actually ran a game very similar to this type style, and it was an exploratory situation. We had to figure out what our stats were, what our classes were, what our favored weapon. I, at one point in time, punched a goblin, grappled him, and used as a weapon on the other goblin that was there. And I'm like, is this natural? Is this something that I'm used to? It's like, well, it's natural, but it's not your favorite fighting style. I'm like, okay, all right, this is great.
Who knew? Goblin chucks were not. Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds. Hang out with this nerd.
Ted.
Nerdarchy asks a question: is it fair to hand your players a blank character sheet and then start playing the game?
Jump down in the description below where you can sign up for Nerdarchy, the newsletter, get weekly gaming tips, as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy.
So we have another GM 911 for you guys, which you can find in the original post down in the description below. And if you have a GM 911 of your own, send it to nerdarchy@gmail.com, GM 911 in the subject line. We also take viewer suggestions over there as well. So Ryan Camp sent us the GM 911, and basically he has a concept for a campaign. And the concept is he wants the characters to start off with blank character sheets. They wake up, no memory. They don't know who they are. What I normally use.
It was a very weird campaign. We wound up never finishing it, which was a little sad. But it was great that not only were we exploring the world, were we exploring, the adventure, but we were figuring out who and what we were as characters. So I thought that was pretty big.